Hi guys, my name is Alex, and today we'll delve into the case of a college student who was found dead at a public pool. Police found several important clues, but the case turned out to be much more complicated than it initially seemed. During the investigation, detectives uncovered a series of horrifying twists and eventually managed to solve the mystery. Alexandra Kemp was born on October 11, 1982, in the city of Leawood, Kansas. With a population of just over 30,000 people, it was one of the wealthiest suburbs in the Kansas City metropolitan area. Alexandra, who preferred to go by Allie, lived there with her parents and two brothers. From a very young age, she was incredibly active, participating in 19 different sports teams and various other activities throughout her school years. She had a passion for soccer and also excelled academically. After graduating from high school in 2001, Allie enrolled at Kansas State University to study ecology. She always wanted a career that would allow her to help others. Allie even planned to travel to Russia on an exchange program to help orphan children. In 2002, when she had finished her freshman year at college, 19-year-old Allie returned home for the summer break. She wanted to find a part-time job and also spend some time with her loved ones before returning back. She was also thrilled to reunite with her longtime boyfriend, Phil. The couple had been together for 5 years, but they had chosen different universities after high school. Despite the distance, they continued their relationship, and summer breaks were their only opportunity to be together. Allie and Phil landed a job together at the local public pool, and Allie's younger brother also joined in. Their shifts lined up, one after the other. Phil worked mornings, Allie during the day, and her brother in the evenings. On Thursday, June 18th, Allie showed up for her shift to relieve Phil. At first, she thought about asking him to stay with her a bit, but then changed her mind since they had plans to meet up for a date later in the evening. The day was pretty overcast, so there weren't many visitors at the pool. Allie sat at her desk, reading a book, waiting for the workday to end. As evening approached, her younger brother arrived at the pool to start his shift. However, to his surprise, he couldn't find his sister anywhere. Her phone, keys, and other personal items were left unattended on the table, yet Allie herself was nowhere to be seen. After searching the area, he decided to call their parents. Their father, Roger Kemp, rushed over immediately, growing increasingly worried as the situation seemed odd. He knew that Allie wouldn't just leave her belongings, including her phone, and leave work early. Roger meticulously searched the entire area, checking every corner. Finally, he reached the pump room. It was very dark inside, and at first, he didn't notice anything suspicious. But as he was about to leave, something caught his eye. There was a blue tarp spread out in the corner, and a foot was sticking out from underneath. His heart sank as he got closer, realizing it was his daughter lying beneath it. Allie was covered in blood and bruises, showing no signs of life. She was also missing her shorts and underwear. Roger immediately called an ambulance, but the doctors couldn't save her. She passed away shortly after arriving at the hospital. Medical experts determined that Allie had suffered a severe head injury and the cause of death was strangulation. They also found numerous defense wounds, indicating that Allie had tried to fend off her attacker. Police launched an investigation and quickly found the first piece of evidence. There was an open first aid kit with a pill container on the floor of the pump room, near where the victim was discovered. It was sent to the lab, and experts found male DNA on the container and its lid. Biological samples were also found on Allie's clothing. After comparing all these samples, experts concluded that they belonged to the same man, but he was not in the FBI database. Police began looking for possible suspects, starting with Allie's boyfriend. Given the brutality of the attack, investigators considered that the assailant might have had personal motives. According to Phil, after his shift, he went to visit friends, and his alibi was corroborated by several people. He also provided his DNA sample, which didn't match the perpetrators. The same was true for Allie's father and brother. They both provided their samples right away. Roger was overwhelmed with grief and spent the entire night at the morgue, unable to leave Allie alone. The next day, as some city residents gathered to express their condolences, he gave a speech and promised to find his daughter's killer at any cost. News of the murder quickly spread among the locals, who had rarely encountered such crimes before. As a result, the police received numerous tips, and almost instantly, they found their first lead. Several pool visitors reported seeing a strange man lurking around the pool area the day before the murder, peering at them from behind bushes and even filming them. Other witnesses mentioned seeing a similar-looking man driving a beige Ford pickup truck in the pool parking lot. None of them recognized the man, and it seemed unlikely he was a visitor. Phil added another intriguing detail. One day, Allie had told him that she sometimes felt uneasy working alone, as if someone was watching her. She didn't specify if she had seen anyone suspicious near the pool, but the accounts of other witnesses suggested it could have been the same man. Another lead came from Allie's friend, Laurel. On the day of the murder, around 3 p.m., Allie called her, saying she was bored. Laurel decided to drive to the pool to keep her company. Upon arrival, she honked several times, expecting Allie to come out and meet her. But instead, a man came out from the pump room and waved at Laurel. Thinking it was Allie's boss, she thought that her visit might cause trouble for her friend and decided to leave. Upon hearing this account, detectives believed that this man was likely the killer. Based on Laurel's testimony, they created a composite sketch of the suspect, which was then distributed to local newspapers and TV channels. Phil initiated a flyer distribution campaign featuring the composite sketch and a description of the suspect. With the help of his friends and numerous volunteers, thousands of flyers were spread throughout this town. Despite all these efforts, the police still couldn't close in on the perpetrator. Roger also raised $50,000 as a reward for any information leading to the murderer, but it yielded no results. Sometime later, he suddenly had an idea to put up a billboard featuring the suspect's composite sketch along the busy highway he regularly uses on his way to work. He discussed this idea with the police, who supported it. However, they mentioned that their department had no money to rent a billboard, and he would have to cover all the expenses himself. Roger contacted a company that was renting billboards and asked about the cost. When they learned about his daughter's murder, they decided to provide the billboard completely free of charge, wanting to help crack the case. Allie's father, who hadn't expected such a turn of events, gratefully accepted their offer. Together with the police, they created a banner featuring the composite sketch, the suspect's car drawing, and information about the $50,000 reward. After the billboard went up, the police began receiving significantly more tips, with the number surpassing 1,000 in just a few weeks. They carefully checked each one, and soon stumbled upon some intriguing lead. They were told the composite sketch resembled a local resident named James Strader. Detectives went to talk to him, but Strader claimed he was at work during the time of the murder. His boss confirmed his alibi, and he was temporarily ruled out as a suspect. However, soon the police received another tip about Strader and found out he owned the same type of car as the suspect. But there was more to come. The police learned that he was wanted in 2 states, suspected of a series of crimes. In just 3 weeks, he allegedly committed 3 sexual assaults and 2 kidnappings. He assaulted his ex-girlfriend, then forced her to drive with him in search of a new victim. Soon, he stopped and attempted to break into someone's home to steal money. At that moment, a 14-year-old girl was passing by, and Strader forced her into his car with threats. He then drove to a remote area, assaulted the girl and his ex-girlfriend, left them both there, and drove away. Sometime later, he knocked on another woman's door and said that his car had broken down. When she opened the door, Strader pulled out a knife, entered the house, and assaulted her. He then abducted the woman and drove her to another town, but she managed to escape. Eventually, he was apprehended in Utah. Strader pulled into a gas station and drove away without paying, prompting the staff to call the police. Soon after, a police officer noticed his car and pulled him over, ran his ID, and saw that the man was wanted for kidnappings and assaults. While speaking with the officer, Strader smirked at him and said he should handcuff him. Investigators in Allie's case immediately reached out to their colleagues in another state, asking for a DNA sample from Strader. However, as soon as the lab finished the analysis, the detectives faced an unexpected turn. His DNA didn't match the sample found on Allie's clothing or the pill bottle. Eventually, Strader received a life sentence for his other crimes, and detectives continued their search for Allie's killer. For many months, they made no progress, but in the fall of 2004, the detectives received another interesting tip. A person called the police, saying the composite sketch resembled his acquaintance, a man named Teddy Hoover. Upon investigating this man, police learned that he lived in Kansas City and worked for a pool maintenance company. They also found his name in the case files. Hoover was one of the people gathered at the pool when the body was discovered. He had been questioned along with others, but hadn't raised any suspicions. Investigators went to his house and asked some questions about Allie's murder. Hoover claimed he hardly remembered where he was on that particular day, as it had been 2 years. The officers asked for his DNA sample, but Teddy refused, saying he needed to discuss it with his lawyer first. Police didn't rush to rule him out as a suspect, but they lacked any evidence to tie him to this crime. Later, they decided to speak with him again, but there was a problem. Teddy, along with his girlfriend, had simply disappeared, and their current whereabouts remained unknown. A month later, another tip came into the police. Someone, who decided to remain anonymous, informed them that Teddy and his girlfriend were now living in Connecticut, over 1,000 miles away from Kansas City. This seemed highly suspicious. Teddy had moved across the country right after the police took an interest in him. The detectives reached out to the state's postal service to track Teddy's new address through them, but they couldn't find any information about him. So, detectives requested the same for his girlfriend's name, and this time they hit the mark. The woman was receiving mail at an address in the small town of Bantam. However, there was something peculiar. A man named Benjamin Appleby was also receiving mail at the same address. Investigators checked this name and discovered that this man had an extensive criminal record, including robberies and assaults. Interestingly, Teddy Hoover also had convictions for similar offenses, including an active arrest warrant for public indecency. Detectives began to suspect that something wasn't right. According to the postman, who regularly delivered letters to Teddy's girlfriend's address, he only saw 2 people in the house, and based on his descriptions, Appleby closely resembled Hoover. The police once again asked their colleagues in Connecticut for help. They went to the house and confirmed that Teddy Hoover indeed lived there, leading to his arrest on the warrant for public indecency. Meanwhile, detectives in Allie's case arrived in Connecticut and started preparing for the interrogation. They set up an investigation board with photos of the victim, Teddy, and pictures from the crime scene, hoping it would help to obtain a confession from Teddy. As he was brought into this room, he immediately became nervous seeing all this. Almost right away, he admitted that Benjamin Appleby was his real name, and Teddy Hoover was the identity of his late friend, which he used to avoid arrest. At first, he denied any involvement in Allie's murder, but that didn't last long. Just 10 minutes into the questioning, he started talking. According to Benjamin, on that day, he went to the pool to speak with the manager and offer his company's cleaning services. That's when he saw Allie, and he instantly liked her. She was in the pump room, and Benjamin approached her, trying to start a conversation. Allie responded politely to his compliments, but clearly wasn't interested. Benjamin continued to compliment her, but she wasn't into it and tried to leave. He blocked the door with his hand and tried to touch her. When Allie pushed him away, he started beating her. He hit her multiple times, took off her clothes, intending to assault her, but then he heard a honking outside. So, he strangled her, covered her with a tarp, and went outside, where he saw her friend, Laurel, sitting in her car. He waved at her, and she drove away. After that, he left the crime scene too. Sometime later, Benjamin decided to come back and arrived just as medics were taking Allie out of the pump room. That's when the police questioned him, but he didn't raise any suspicions. Benjamin said he didn't know why he committed this crime and regretted it. He also added that he really liked Allie, and when she pushed him away, he just lost control over himself. After obtaining his confession, investigators sent his DNA sample to the lab. It matched the samples found on Allie's clothes and the pill container. When asked why he took those pills, Benjamin said he was trying to find something in the first aid kit to use as a lubricant. The day after his arrest, the man hired a lawyer who tried to withdraw his confession, even though just a few hours earlier, Benjamin had said he didn't want to put the victim's family through a trial. However, with his DNA found on the victim's clothes, there was hardly any chance of avoiding punishment. At the trial, his lawyer argued that the murder was accidental, but he couldn't prove such a far-fetched version of events. In 2005, Benjamin was found guilty and sentenced to a minimum of 50 years in prison. This means he wouldn't be eligible for release until 2054, and even then, it wasn't guaranteed. Considering he was only 29 at the time of sentencing, he would likely remain behind bars for the rest of his life. Since then, Benjamin has repeatedly tried to appeal his sentence, but all his attempts have failed. However, each attempt has been a heavy burden for Allie's family. Her father has done everything he could to ensure his daughter's killer won't be released. Allie's parents also organized self-defense classes for women in her memory. The project gained widespread attention, and tens of thousands of women have been trained through it. Allie's father was even invited to the White House to meet with Barack Obama. The president awarded him for organizing the self-defense classes and highlighted their importance. Roger was also thanked for coming up with the idea of posting information about wanted criminals on billboards. It turned out that no one had done this before, and this method proved to be very effective. Alright guys, share your thoughts on this story in the comment section, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching.